Hello, everyone. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and this is Monday, February 10th, 2020. And today we're going to talk about consequences and other matters, but primarily consequences. For there was an interesting development that I was finally able to disclose yesterday, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail today. Now, Field McConnell had a preliminary hearing this morning where I guess you could say the rules of the road were spelled out. I checked at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and there had not been any recording in the record on that particular hearing. As a matter of fact, the entry for the schedule for today had been cleared off the docket. But all they were doing was telling Field McConnell what he can and cannot do at the other hearing. So we take a little bit of a reprieve and we wait and see what happens. Now, as of yet, Field McConnell has not gotten on the telephone. He wasn't on the telephone yesterday, and he has not been on the telephone today. Now, since he was a little bit busy, he's either going to be late or he may not be on at all. But Field McConnell has been struck with the reality that he is going to need a bar certified lawyer if he's going to have someone representing him in court. Either that or he is going to have to represent himself. People on the outside are not going to be able to file documents with the court having to do with his extradition. So this might start bringing a dose of reality to Field McConnell. Now, as for this other development, it would seem that Sarah Dunklin has had a bit of a bad day. Her husband filed a petition with the court to have full custody of the child that was currently living with Sarah Dunklin, their biological child. And the court granted an emergency order taking the child from Sarah Dunklin and turning it over to the husband. Now, to get emergency orders like this, there has to be something serious going on, because you just don't go and file an emergency order for a child after a divorce. Something else is going on. And something else would have to be going on to the extent that the court felt it necessary to take this step. Now, this is not CPS doing this order. It's the court. This is a conservative state. This is Arkansas. It was Arkansas County Court that issued the order that the child be removed from Ms. Dunklin's care and handed over to the husband. Now, there is going to be another hearing tomorrow where the husband is going to seek permanent custody. And it is at that time that some rather interesting evidence comes out. For it appears that the husband has been following the actions of his ex-wife for quite some time. And he grew concerned about things that she was saying on the internet and things that she was accused of doing. And that primarily it was her alleged involvement with the Cindy Abzug case that prompted his action. And it was not only the Cynthia Abzug case that came to his attention, but it was also actions having to do with Abel Danger, Field McConnell, the Children's Crusade, and the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. Sarah Dunklin had made a number of statements on the internet, specifically on Field McConnell's show, that had to do with accusing people of eating babies, accusing people of drinking babies' blood, talking about satanic rituals, talking about child trafficking for the purposes of pedophilia and all kinds of stuff. And in one specific case, according to sources, she was threatening people that their days are numbered, making a lot of QAnon affiliated statements. Apparently, there is an investigation by the FBI that came out having to do with parties in the Abzug case, specifically Ryan, who is allegedly her boyfriend. Apparently, someone made what's known as a custodian of records affidavit with the court, supplying BitChute tapes of her and Field McConnell on the Field McConnell show. It is unknown if evidence included statements by Timothy Charles Holmseth, but it would seem that a lot of material from the Field Report, the Children's Crusade, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force was submitted to court as evidence for grounds to have custody of the children or child taken away from Ms. Dunklin. It is also reported that tomorrow, again, if I haven't said this already, that Ms. Dunklin may permanently lose custody of the child due to this erratic behavior. Now, this is a consequence of getting involved in these outrageous missions that Ms. Abzug allegedly has done. Harboring a woman who is a fugitive from justice, aiding her with substantial amounts of money, which could have gone towards the care of her children, instead of going for some odd crusade. I would imagine that this is one of the complaints. Her husband probably grew concerned over the accusations that Miss Dunklin was spending huge amounts of money on a complete stranger. She's getting involved with a male individual with a questionable background and partaking in questionable actions, aiding and abetting a fugitive from justice, aiding and abetting a woman who might possibly be taking part in an armed kidnapping of her child, and so on. And so now Miss Dunklin finds herself in the same situation that Cynthia Abzug found herself in. That she has lost custody of her child, at least temporarily. And tomorrow she may lose custody of that child permanently. Now, the questioning by investigators have already started. There's a report of at least one individual who has been questioned by investigators. It is not known yet if those investigators are state of Colorado or from the FBI or a combination of both. But people outside the state of Colorado are being questioned regarding Ms. Abzug's actions while she was on the run. Now, there are other developments going on that I have information on, preliminary information on, but I can't disclose at this time. It's the same reason why I haven't disclosed prior knowledge of this particular incident. I've known about the pending action regarding Ms. Ducklin since Thursday. And I knew something was going to be happening, possibly, last Monday. Because I started getting information that Mrs. Ducklin's husband, ex-husband, was getting concerned about information he was getting regarding Sarah Ducklin's association with these people. And the fact that this is the mother of his child that is taking part in these bizarre actions. And the information got to the point where he decided that some drastic action had to be taken due to the safety of his child. And so he acted. Now, as news of this comes out locally, it may or may not affect Ms. Ducklin's standing with the GOP, and it also may not do well for her father, who is running in the Republican primary for political office. I believe he's running for the United States Senate in that district. But having this kind of a controversy potentially coming into this heated political year is not a good thing. And so it's going to remain to be seen how this may affect his political chances. Because politics is a dirty game, and people are always looking for dirt on their opponent. And that dirt could be anything. And so, if her father's opponent gets wind of this and decides to use it, his chances for being nominated for the United States Senate may be in jeopardy. Arkansas is a conservative state, and one thing Arkansas does not like is people that flaunt the law. And we've already had a couple of examples of this in recent political races, and we may see another one. Now, there are other people that are in the crosshairs of consequences. And Field McConnell is at the top of that list, because Field McConnell has more problems than just this case in Florida. It's just the beginning of his troubles. Mr. McConnell has financial problems. No matter how many times he goes on his little radio show or makes statements that everything's all fine and dandy, it's not. The date is fast approaching where proof has to be submitted to the court that Field McConnell has met the conditions set down by the court regarding his foreclosure. Mr. McConnell also has to deal with the Internal Revenue Service, and after his case with Florida reaches a certain point, he's going to have to deal with the state of Wisconsin because he threatened the life of a bank officer. Nobody discusses that a lot, but the fact of the matter is that Field McConnell threatened a bank officer. There was a formal complaint made regarding that incident, and the case is open. It has not been closed. They have put the case on hold, waiting to see what Florida's going to do. They have plenty of time under the statute of limitations to deal with this particular incident, and that's what's going to happen, is that they are going to deal with this threat. So Phil McConnell's troubles are only beginning. And on top of that, Phil McConnell is also wrapped up in the investigation by federal and state authorities regarding Cynthia Abzug. It's one of the reasons the case is sealed, as far as the court is concerned. Very unusual for this kind of a case to have it sealed, but it has been sealed. And the reasons for it being sealed are going to come out once this case hits the court and there's a trial of some kind. Because, under the Constitution of the state of Colorado and the United States and affiliated laws, this information eventually has to be made public. And when it becomes public, a lot of names are going to come out, the sequence of events are going to come out, and people are going to realize what the extent of what's been happening was. And they're also going to see the likelihood that a number of people are going to get indicted. Now, there is such a thing as a sealed indictment. Q likes to brag about these all the time, about how there's 2,000-3,000 sealed indictments out there. Well, Phil McConnell and a number of other people just might find themselves on a sealed indictment. And then one day, knocks are going to start being made on doors, handcuffs are going to be brought out, Miranda warnings are going to be read, and people are going to start to be hauled off to jail. And then the fun begins. There's going to be a bunch of lawyers that are going to earn their money, or this postmaster of the world is going to find himself extraordinarily busy. Because if these people start relying on the postmaster of the world to get them out of their little jam, or possibly Kirk Pendergrass or Chris Hallett, who, as it turns out, might have sealed indictments of their own to worry about, get involved in these things, it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a long, hot summer. I think June is going to be a hot summer in more ways than one. Now, Timothy Holmseth has had a kind of an interesting setback, even though he may not realize it again, and knowing Timothy Holmseth, he may not even care. For Timothy Holmseth has had a woman who has been an ardent supporter of his for as long as I can remember. This woman, you would think, was in love with Tim Holmseth to the extent of her support. She has stood by Timothy Holmseth no matter what. She has campaigned for him. She has sent him money, from what I understand. She has been an extremely loyal and ardent supporter. That apparently has ended. I private messaged her over a few days. She made it clear in one of the last messages I had from her of late that she no longer supports Tim Holmseth. She apparently had been getting increasingly concerned about his association with violent people, mainly Phil McConnell, Pastor Dan, Preacher Dan. I call him Redbeard, just, for the sake of it. But he has been affiliating himself with these questionable characters. And she doesn't like the violence. She doesn't like the death threats. And so she decided that she can no longer support Timothy Homeseth. She feels sorry for him. She doesn't hate him or anything. She's just disappointed that apparently Tim Homeseth has gone down a path that she can no longer follow. And so Tim Homeseth has lost yet another true and loyal friend. Chad was a good and close friend. Tom was a good and close friend. But both of these people began to see problems with Tim that they just couldn't overcome. And when Tim made false accusations against the two of them, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Tim made false accusations to the wrong people, about the wrong people. And they said enough is enough. And they decided that unfortunately, they would have to part ways with Tim Homeseth, and that's what they've done. So now, Tim Homeseth is losing good, loyal supporters that could help guide him through whatever problem path that he had. Instead, Tim Homeseth is turned to unreliable people with questionable agendas, and these people are just going to lead Tim Homeseth down the wrong path. And there are others that are going to start suffering consequences. As the circle of information grows wider, and more people within the personal networks of these people start finding out what it is that they're up to. Or it's interesting to find out that in some of these cases, the more prominent actors in this have managed to keep their actions on the internet away from their personal network to a great extent. You know, some people that they would prefer not know about things they're doing on the internet are starting to find out. And apparently this is causing some problems. And it may have cost some long-time friendships as people find out exactly what's been going on in the lives of their former friends over the last few years. And they have felt it necessary, apparently, that it is time to cut their association with this person, to back off, to try and talk this person out of these actions. And if they're not going to have any success with getting this advice taken, they're simply going to leave the person. They're not going to associate with that person anymore. No friendships, no bridge parties or gatherings or what have you. They're just going to say, nope, you're too weird. I can't hang around with weird people. Now, as I've said, this is going to be a busy week for trials. We've got 3, possibly 4 separate trials going on. We had Field McConnell today on a preliminary hearing. And Wednesday, we're going to have another one. Tomorrow, we have Sarah Dunklin having to answer for this latest development. See what her argument's going to be. And watch as she probably loses custody of her child because of actions that she's taken on the internet. We have Cynthia Ebbsug with a hearing on the 11th. And that will decide future courses of action, future trials, so on and so forth. Haven't heard an awful lot out of the Children's Crusade other than propaganda to try and salvage the situation with Field McConnell. Other social media outlets are chiming in, but it doesn't look good. In fact, it looks bleak for an ever-growing number of people. As people start to get questioned by the authorities, and word gets out that the authorities are becoming increasingly active, people are going to start realizing that there are consequences for their actions as well. People that didn't expect to get drawn into this situation are going to find out that they actually are, because they associated themselves with the Children's Crusade. They associated themselves with the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force. They took active participation. And, names are out there. The person of interest list grows. And out of the person of interest list, there will grow suspects. And out of the suspects list will grow the indicted list, and so on and so forth. So the ladder of consequences being climbed daily by all these people, because they made some rather bad choices over the past few years. They got emboldened by their success in one bad act and engaged in others, not realizing that sooner or later there were going to be consequences for their actions. And we're there now. Now, we can't predict with absolute certainty what's going to happen to all these people. Maybe by some miracle, this politically connected Abzug woman might be able to convince the judge to give her back her child. Maybe. But considering the mountain of evidence provided to the court, and the fact that it's disclosed that Ms. Abzug is under federal investigation, it's not going to be a good situation, no matter how well you are connected politically. There's a lot to answer for here. Not only to the family court situation, but for the political situation and for the participation of law enforcement in actions that she partook. Mr. Ryan is going to find himself at the center of attention here because he provided the car. It is said that it was Ryan that provided the car. Now, it doesn't matter who provided the car. Somebody did. And that car was used to elude an arrest warrant. And because of that, whoever gave that car to Joseph, or if it was Joseph himself, that's an accessory. And if it can be proven that there was an intent to engage in an armed kidnapping of a child across state lines, that brings people into that little situation. Because that's the accusation here. In all of this, this is just not some woman skipping out on a court date. This is someone that is being accused of plotting a kidnapping. Third-degree felony. It is alleged that there were firearms involved. So now we move to third-degree armed kidnapping. Conspiracy to commit armed kidnapping. Same charge, whether you go through with it or not, the charges are equal. Penalties are equal. Then you start adding the aggravating circumstances to it. The fact that it was alleged that she had this Munchausen's by proxy, no matter how silly you think the prognosis is, and what your opinion is on CPS and everything, the fact of the matter is that she was informed that she is suspected of having this condition. And when she found out, she ran. This is what the prosecutor's going to get up and argue. He's going to argue that this woman found out that she had been accused of this condition and that it was likely she was going to lose custody of her son because of it. And so she decided to run, got mixed up with this radical group, and someone, somewhere, came up with the idea of an armed kidnapping. And her daughter overheard it, got concerned, and filed a complaint. Now, law enforcement doesn't go around and just say, oh, we're going to bring the woman in, so let's accuse her of kidnapping, armed kidnapping, and that should be enough to bring her in. They don't do that. Not with a mother of a child. You know, this isn't some street punk. This isn't a member of a violent gang. This is a mother of a child. So the police are unlikely to go around accusing her of conspiracy to commit an armed kidnapping just to bring her in, when all she did was skip out on court. If that were the case, they could do the same thing to Tim Homseth. They could accuse Homseth of anything in the world to bring him in. But you don't see that happening. Tim Homseth is sitting on the couch eating popcorn and watching a big TV. He's free and clear. He can do what he damn well pleases because nobody cares about him. He could probably go back to Polk County, with Minnesota, visit his parents, drive around town and leave, and as long as he doesn't get pulled over by a cop for a traffic infraction, he's probably it's perfectly fine because nobody cares. It's a minor violation. All they do in situations like this with Homeseth is they just wait around for him to make some dumb mistake, get pulled over by a traffic cop, and then is when he can get arrested. But they're not going to go out there and start banging on doors looking for him. They gave up on that. They got more important things to worry about than some conspiracy nut that ran out on a court case. They're glad to be rid of him. You know, they don't have some nut going around filing lawsuits against the city or individual police officers or the Weather Bureau or former employers. You know, everything's peaceful and happy in Polk County, Minnesota. So good riddance. These other people, on the other hand, they continue to be a nuisance. They continue to break the law. They continue to flaunt the law. And authorities are getting fed up. They're getting fed up with pulling people over that say they have the right to travel, that don't have license plates, and start tying their time up with this gobbledygook. And so they're clamping down. They're saying, enough of you people. You're screwing up our state. You're screwing us up. We got better things to do than screw with you people, so you can go sit in the holding cell, go to court, make an ass of yourself in court, and wind up in the general prison populations. That seems to be what you want. So they're starting to pick off these sovereign citizens. And one state in particular that doesn't like sovereign citizens is Florida. And when Phil McConnell goes to court in Broward County and he starts rambling off all the sovereign citizen and alternative law bullcrap, the judge is going to set him straight. They're saying, nope, we're not going through that down here. Saying, we got a lot of cases going down here. We got some big ones. There's a high-profile case going on right now in Broward County, of all places. There's a high school shooter, the Parkland shooter, is on trial right now. Just had a big thing here about him, about where they played his internet threats in court, which I thought was a remarkable coincidence. He made threats on the internet. Sound familiar? He wound up going to Parkland High School and killing people. But he made threats on the internet. Now imagine if someone had been intelligent enough to act on those threats there'd be some kids alive today. Now, this is going to be on the minds of people in Broward County when Phil McConnell shows up, because Phil McConnell has made threats on the internet. And he picked a resident of Broward County, the same county where the Parkland shooting took place, to make these threats. And when this comes out in court, Parkland's going to be in the backs of the minds of a lot of people, including judges, including people in the prison, and potential jurors. Because if Phil McConnell asks for a jury trial, he's dead meat. Because it's going to come out in court that this man called for the execution of a family court attorney. That he just out of the blue accused her of all these dire crimes. Child trafficking, eating babies, drinking their blood, all this weird stuff that he accused her of being part of. And wait till the stuff about Hillary Clinton comes out, and Podesta, and Vinderman, and all these people, and who knows, he might even bring Mike Pence into the picture. That would be brilliant. You know, this stuff hits the court records. The jurors are going to think, well, look at him and say, God, lock him up and throw away the key. Consequences. Phil McConnell probably couldn't have picked a worse time to come to Florida. He chose, or actually, circumstances chose, the Parkland shooting trial as the time for Phil McConnell to come to Florida. On the heels of that trial. That trial will about wrap up when he gets here. You're in the middle of it. The defense is trying to keep the Parkland shooters' psychiatric records out of court. Or if they come in, there's going to be some serious problems. Because right now, the defense is trying for an insanity plea with the shooter. And the state wants those records. The state wants to show that this individual acted on premeditation, that he knew right from wrong, that he knew damn well what he was doing. All of that. He's going to go to jail for life at minimum. But what the defense is trying to do right now with this individual is prevent him from having the death penalty. And that's what's weighing right now. They're trying to save him from the execution cocktail, as we know it down here. The 3 drugs combination that will end this man's existence. Not really a man, believe it or not. He's a juvenile, or was. But this individual is so violent that they put him in a pod all by himself. They cleared out a place that would house several hundred inmates to keep this guy by himself. And he actually attacked a guard quite recently. He was running around in circles like a wolf circling his prey, and then all of a sudden he just jumped on the guy, and they had quite a wrestling match until they were able to subdue him. This is the kind of guy that's on trial right now. This is the kind of guy that went into a high school and shot up a bunch of students and others. So this is where Phil McConnell's going. He's going right into the middle of this hornet's nest. Right in the middle of the highest profile murder trial in the history of Broward County. Not a good place to be. Not a good atmosphere to be in when the Parkland shooting is on the minds of the residents of Broward County. Now, here is a man who threatened the mother of 3 children with violence similar to that of the Parkland shooter. Here is a man who appointed himself judge and jury, made daily broadcasts on the internet, reaching a subscriber base of 41,000 people, calling for the execution of this mother of 3 children. Here is a man who had the potential of inciting some unknown individual out there to take the law in his own hands and do a Parkland-style shooting of the mother of 3 children and possibly the employees of her law firm. This is a woman that owns a very large law firm. She's an officer of the court. She is an attorney that specializes in family law. And so when it comes out that this woman is accused of the things that they say that this one man says she did, Parkland's going to be in the back of their head. The violence that came out of Parkland is going to be in the back of their heads. The news reports about the Parkland shooter attacking a guard is going to be in the back of their heads. Almost every day there's an update on the Parkland shooter. There's an update on his outbursts. There's an update about his threats. There's an update about the video that shows his intent on the internet that was so bad that the Parkland shooter refused to listen to it. He put his head down on the table and covered his ears. He didn't want to hear it. His own words, his own threats, his own actions, because he knew. He knew what he did. He's probably lives with it every day. All those people seeing the results of his actions, the consequences of his actions, played out for him on a TV monitor. This will happen to Field McConnell. Field McConnell's going to have to sit in court and listen to video after video after video after video after the words that he said on the internet. There's not going to be an administrator that's going to do a copyright strike on the Broward County Court. You don't do copyright strikes in a court case. So, Field McConnell is about to get the consequences of his actions in short order. The day is fast approaching. It is ironic that it is likely that Field McConnell may make his booking appearance in the very day that they render a verdict in regards to the Parkland shooter. It would be very ironic. But at the very least, it's going to be right in the middle of the trial of the Parkland shooter. That incident's going to be fresh on the minds of the residents of that county. And it's going to be fresh on their minds when news about someone who made violent threats against a local resident get out there, that this is going to influence their decision when it comes time for the trial to take place. Because right now, a lot of them don't know Field McConnell. They don't know what's coming. Field McConnell will get booked. Field McConnell will go through some preliminary investigations. You're not going to have the Sun Sentinel or any TV station in Fort Lauderdale covering Field McConnell's initial appearance in court. Because it's not important. Right now, the Parkland shooter is important. Other more prominent stories in Broward County are taking place. So not a lot of people are going to know about Phil McConnell until the time comes. So when jury selection starts, they're going to start hearing about Phil McConnell. Because at one of the preliminary hearings they have, they're going to go over the prosecution and the defense, the questions they want to ask the jurors. There's the standard questions you ask a juror. Can you be impartial, and so on and so forth. There may be questions about, have you ever been a victim of or involved in domestic violence of any kind? Have you ever had a violent threat over the internet? All kinds of questions might be asked to qualify the jury. But eventually they're going to get a jury. Because Phil is more than likely going to ask for a jury trial. Doesn't matter if he asks for a bench or a jury. He may figure that there's members of the jury out there that are mothers that have had problems with CPS or problems with babies or some other thing where he might think he's going to luck out and get people on the jury that are sympathetic to his argument, rather than a bench trial where the judge by law has to go by the facts of the case and not let bias or emotions sink in. So Phil McConnell is going to find himself in front of a jury, and when the prosecution gets up and starts stating what it is that Phil McConnell is alleged to have done, Parkland's going to come creeping up in the back of the minds of these people, saying, oh my God, we got another one. This is a guy that wanted to do what the Parkland shooter wanted to do, or wanted to incite someone else to do what the Parkland shooter did. And this is an adult. This is a 70-year-old man that should have known better. And he is attacking the mother of 3 children this way. Now, maybe some of these jurors, I don't know if they'll ask these questions in the qualification process, but there might be jurors on there that have had problems on the internet. You know, they've gotten into a debate and someone says, made a veiled threat, made a false accusation against them, did something that upset these people on the internet. And here they've got a guy in front of them that did the same thing. They're going to say, I may not be able to get even for the person that attacked me, but I can get even for the woman this guy attacked. So the consequence is going to add up in the minds of the jury that this guy needs to pay for what he did to this woman. Because no matter how much you qualify a juror, how much you get a juror to say that they will be impartial, as the stuff comes out that Phil McConnell is alleged to have done, people are going to get upset on the jury panel. They're going to say, this guy did what? This guy believes what? This guy is accusing a woman of eating babies, a mother of 3 children. He's accused of eating babies or taking part in actions that would lead to the result of someone somewhere eating babies, drinking their blood, child trafficking, getting involved in the Ukraine. All these wild things that Phil McConnell's accused this woman of are going to come out in court. And these people are going to go, what the hell is all this about? This guy's out of his gourd. This guy's dangerous. That will creep into the minds of the jury that this guy is dangerous. Doesn't matter if he was the one with the gun or the one with the words. He's dangerous. He's got to get off the street. I said, I don't care if this guy's 80 years old. Epstein wasn't a spring chicken. And neither were these other people. And another thing's going to be on the back of their mind. They're going to remember that Epstein got off. That someone made a deal that got Epstein off. And this is going to creep in there that this clown tried to associate a good, honest mother of three trying to do her job and provide a service to the community of this kind of nonsense. That he actually equated this woman to Epstein. And it's going to come out in court that he had a problem with his Democratic-leaning sister. It's going to come out that Phil McConnell has a problem with political opposition, that he doesn't like people of a certain political leaning. And it just might come out that he got all these ideas from Timothy Charles Homestead. Then he allowed an unemployed pizza delivery driver to put these things in his head. That Timothy Charles Homestead took advantage of the hatred of his sister to turn Phil McConnell into a mouthpiece. A lot of things are going to come out about Phil McConnell. The lawsuit that Mr. McConnell took part in might come out, because they're going to do a background to explain what makes Mr. McConnell tick. They're going to get into all these wild theories. They're going to get into the pedophile task force. They're going to get into the Children's Crusade and the accusations that have been made there. And the jurors are going to ask themselves, what in the world does the Children's Crusade have to do with this attorney from Florida? Why would the Children's Crusade be making death threats against a woman who is an attorney from Florida? What is with these people? And another thing, since we're talking politics, Broward County is a liberal county. Broward County, for the most part, votes Democratic. Now, it is a mixed state. There are Republicans there, but we are primarily, in Broward County, a Democratic state. Now, Florida was at the center of a problem way back when with hanging chads and all kinds of stuff during the Bush-Gore elections. And the election had to be decided by the Supreme Court. That's how bad it got. And Broward County came into play. Now, Republicans didn't take Broward County anywhere near what anybody said. But what made Broward County so important is that they had to go through every single solitary ballot in that county, like they did in every county in the state of Florida, to decide the election. And the voting machines that Broward County used created a bit of a problem, because they were kind of like a punch card system, kind of a weird system where a machine punches what they call a chad, and whatever it punches, that's your vote. It's kind of like the old ancient punch card systems we grew up with in high school. And the chads don't completely come out, and so you have what they call a hanging chad. And then they had to make a decision based on the position of the chad, if that was a vote or if it was an oops, and they disregard the ballot. They had lawyers in there, and they had the famous picture of the guy with a magnifying glass. Weird looking guy. Made a laughing stock out of the state of Florida over that one. We seem to be the laughing stock of a lot of things in this state. But the hanging chads is something we'll never live down. So this is the atmosphere in which Phil McConnell finds himself. Now, the hanging chads aren't going to come into this, of course. It's just a little background into the kind of weird things that this county has had to put up with. But the first and foremost consequence of Phil McConnell is to come to Broward County right in the middle of one of the most yeah, boy, I mangled that one. He's coming in the midst of one of the most highly profile cases in the county's history, the Parkland shooter trial, and all the surrounding thoughts and conditions of that incident, the memories that are being dredged up by those who live in that county. And these are the future jurors. These are the people that are going to decide Phil McConnell's future. This is what Phil McConnell has to look forward to. Well, I don't think he realizes that. I don't think anybody told him yet. And guess what's going on in Broward County right now? Guess what you're about to walk smack into the middle of? Guess who your prison mate might be in the same jail? For the Parkland shooter is being held in the Broward County Jail. The very same jail that Phil McConnell's going to be in during his trial. So, they'll be prison mates. They may not be roommates because the Parkland shooter has a pod all to himself and will not put him in the general population. Number one, because the other prisoners would probably kill him. And number two is because this guy is dangerous. I mean, right before his trial, he attacks a prison guard. I mean, this is a real badass. And you can look it up on the internet. There's a video of what this guy did, man. He went nuts. I mean, one minute he's just walking around in circles, and the next minute, all hell broke loose. So this is what Phil McConnell has to look forward to. And another thing that is a consequence of Phil McConnell's actions is this business with the foreign currencies, the Zim bonds, which they're not, but they're basically just currency because they're from Zimbabwe. But he thinks he's going to be a trillionaire with all these things that he encourages people to buy, and he supposedly has himself. And that ain't going nowhere. He may wind up getting in trouble for that because that's a very well-known scam. And if it turns out he's involved in that mess, he may find himself in trouble for that. We're getting into RICO now. Start getting all these various rackets going on, this fraudulent currency scams with these two currencies, the dinars and the Zims. There's a lot of people that are getting ripped off from this stuff. Now, Phil McConnell has done this to anyone where they've gotten ripped off buying these things. That's a stack on the deck. And it's the same with if he has gotten involved in any scam where he's taken money from people under false pretenses. That just adds wire fraud to the mix. He's going to get in trouble for that. I mean, his problems are just building day by day by day. And everybody else that's involved in this stuff, their problems are getting worse. So the consequences of people's actions are coming to fore, starting tomorrow and continuing on from there. And I guarantee you, I have files, emails, text messages, telephone calls that I get on a constant basis, keeping me updated on certain things I can't talk about right now. Just like the Dunklins, I get information. I get to tell you, on the condition that you hold on to this, I'll let you know when to release it. But right now, I don't want you to release it too early because, it'll affect my case, my circumstances. So I agree to keep quiet. Is there people out there that want people to face consequences for their actions? But they trust me enough to let me know that there are things going on that sooner than later things are going to start appearing in court and so forth. And when that time comes, or just before it happens, or just after, I will be told. And that's what's happening. There are people on an ever-increasing basis that come forward and say, this is what's happening to me because of these people. This is what I'm having to face. This is what's going to happen because of what these people have done to me. That's about a third of the information I get. And then I get other sources of information that has to do with the investigations. About things that are being looked into, but that are the result of the actions of these individuals. So there's a lot of stuff going on out there. And someday, if and when the permission is given, I will disclose what's going on. Or it'll come out on its own. But there's a lot coming, folks. There's a lot going on. You know, I'm nothing but I'm a retired truck driver on Social Security. I'm nobody special. I'm not Clark Kent. I'm not some very well-connected reporter. I'm just an ordinary Joe, just like the rest of you out there. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of people that trust me enough to let me know information that normally people don't get to hear. And I sit on this information until the proper time comes, until I'm given permission to give this information out, or the information comes out on its own. And so that's what's coming down the road. I am hoping that some of the information that I'm holding on to right now will come out in the days, weeks, and months to come, provided I can get the permission I need to disclose this information, to make sure that I'm not violating the trust and that I'm not putting any legal cases in jeopardy. So stay tuned. As soon as I hear something, as soon as I'm allowed to say something, you'll be the first to know. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.